So let's look first of all what a tribe meant in the first covenant, which was concerning the 12. 12 seems to be the number kind of government. I'm careful about using that word because it's not the government as we know a government, but it's those that stepped up first to take responsibility over all the tribes of Israel. Today's message is not meant in any way to be framed in just a political idea, but just an idea that comes from more of a spiritual point of view about America and what we're going through at this time. I was most impressed and resonated with this idea some years ago in a book called Anatomy of the Spirit, which was written by Carolyn Myss. Carolyn Myss was a powerful, powerful author and lecturer that affected, I think, a lot of us who were on the spiritual path, especially in the 80s and in the 90s. I'd never thought of the fact that chakras are in such things as our nation. I've always thought chakras are in the human body, in the etheric energy body, but it gave me a whole new idea. And this comes mainly from the premise of shifting into everything is energy. So if everything is energy, we know that energy is always seeking to know itself by finding that spiral. It's like a cycling of itself to know itself. That's what I see a chakra as, energy cycling around to see and observe itself so it can know itself. So when we look at everything as energy, then we realize that every energy must have its own chakra system. So the first chakra is always what we call a tribal power chakra. The energy content of the first chakra is always about power. Also, we call this the chakra of tribalism, because we're all born in the physical body into a family or into a tribe. So let's look at the word tribe for just a moment. It's not only a synonym for family, but it's also an archetype, such as has connotations beyond more conventional definitions. So archetypally, the word tribal connotes group ideas, group force, group willpower, and group belief systems. So you could say, based on that we're somewhat of a tribe here at HeartLight. We come and join because we're resonating and drawn to the message, many of us. Some are drawn because they love the property, or they love the energy of the buildings and the oasis and all of that. There's many things that draws us together, but it is something we have in common with each other. So we could say, in a spiritual sense, that we are a tribe. So let's look first of all what a tribe meant in the first covenant, which was concerning the 12. 12 seems to be the number kind of government. I'm careful about using that word because it's not the government as we know a government, but it's those that stepped up first to take responsibility over all the tribes of Israel, and also the church in the New Testament. So we had 12 tribes in Israel in the Old Testament. Then we had 12 apostles, 12 disciples, and then we had 12 minor prophets. So this seems to be something that is important for us to have, is those who step up to take responsibility. We need that at HeartLight, for instance. Any tribe is looking for those who will step up and take responsibility of the tribe. And that's why next Sunday is so important. I wish we could have done it this Sunday, but next Sunday, I'm looking for that time of Appreciation Sunday, where we can appreciate those first fruits of HeartLight that have stepped up and taken responsibility with their blessings and with their talents for HeartLight. So back in the day, when the tribes of Israel once a year was called to attendance. So you might hear somebody say, we call up the tribe of Judah. And then the tribe of Judah would come, which was several hundred thousands of people. Then they would call Gad, the tribe of Gad, and Gad would come up, and Benjamin, and so on and so forth. All 12 of the tribes were called by their name, by their label, under the priesthood of that time, which is the Aaron priesthood. But at that moment, something happened 2,000 years ago, and that's when Yeshua, one that Christianity knows as Jesus, came in for a transaction, for the transition of moving into a new spiritual order. Now, the order under the tribes was the Aaronic or Aaron, but the new one was to be the order of Melchizedek. Not a word you hear a lot, but it's in the Bible about 4 or 5 times. And it's really representing a word that also would be the pre-Christ. Melchizedek was the pre-Christ of the Old Testament. They didn't call it Christ in the Old Testament, but they called it Melchizedek. And what defined Melchizedek was the fact of some things that you would relate to, you that are finding your spiritual I am identity of having neither mother, father, descent or nationality or gender. In other words, all the labels of the old are kind of taken away, and all is left is I am. I am a spiritual being living in this human body. That's Melchizedek for you that might want to know what that kind of means. So in other words, 2,000 years ago, there was a time in which we had to negotiate. Well, I believe that we've ended that 2,000 years of that second negotiation that went on as we moved from the Old Testament law into the New Testament grace, or it was the age of the church. And I've talked many times to try to redefine and reconstruct this idea of the church, not as an institution, an organization, a belief system, but is the building of a people and their consciousness. It is the community within us, not the community that's outside of us. And again, at HeartLight, I want to say that a lot of us have come together because of the journey we've been on inside of ourselves that we've met up on the outside. The inside has brought us to the outside, rather than the outside trying to bring us to the inside. So this is what's called the path of consciousness and the awakening of consciousness to know itself. So the negotiation, to me, was Yeshua's message. Now, this is why they wanted to dilute and edit and delete some of his message, because that was the transition of how to move from one agreement or covenant to the next one. Well, I think we're living in the time that we're entering into the transition of the third one. This is a new one. Everybody thinks it's all done in the Bible. You got the Old Testament, you got the New Testament, it's over. Once you read that last word, the last line of Revelation in the Old Testament, God has stopped speaking, because all that God spoke is in a book called the Bible. That's not true. God is still speaking, but not in a book on the outside, but in the book on the inside. That one that we talk about with the 7 seals written within in Revelations 5. So you and I mostly come from the New Testament. Now it says that the New Testament is a better covenant. And that caught my attention when I read that years ago, that the New Testament is a better. I thought, wait a minute, where's the best? If there's a better, there's got to be the best. So I'm here to tell you the best is yet to come. And it's coming because it's not because of one person 2,000 years ago like Yeshua. It's because Yeshua became a seed that has brought forth the collective of itself. So it's going to be a collective corporate people that's going to come forth. So I'm not looking for a new Messiah. I'm not looking for a new guru. I'm not looking for one man or one woman, human, to show up to lead us, because it's going to be the collective. So do you hear that call? Do you feel that call in yourself that is calling you forth into transition? And I've used that, I don't want to stand long, but again, when I bought this house, loved this house, we wanted this house, and I wanted to get there. I was ready to move out of Columbus, get to Charlotte and start my new life and whatever, but I couldn't just because I found the house, pack up and come and move into the house. I had to meet with the agents. I had to meet with the bank. I went through transition, which was not fun, but it was important to get me to the transaction. And that's what we are doing. I think of a scripture that says, "Come and let us reason together, saith God." So this is a call for us to come and reason together. And we want to do that at HeartLight, don't we? Let's come and hear each other with love and not judgment. Let everybody's ideas come forward because we all have a voice in this time of such transition and transaction. So there's something that is taking place today that I refer to as the tribe that gave no attendance. So go back and imagine all the tribes are being called. Come on, Judah, Gad, it's on. All 12 are there. And there's this little group of people waiting to see where they fit in. But they never are called because they don't have a label. They're just a group of people that are strange. Or as the scripture says, they are a peculiar people. 1 Peter 2:9, but you are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a peculiar people, that you should show forth the praises of God, who called you out of darkness into the marvelous light. Aren't you glad you've been called out of the darkness of humanity and institutions and religions, and you've been called into this wonderful light that we are representing here at HeartLight. We are the HeartLight people. Now, isn't it interesting that some of you have family and friends that's called you peculiar? Well, that's what it means. So there's a tribe that gave no attendance at the altar. I tell people back when I used to fly a lot, I just dreaded to sit by somebody who wanted to chat and ask me where I've been, what I've been doing, or who I am. What do you do for a living? I never knew what quite to say to them because the minute I said I'm a minister, they boxed me right in and assumed that I was a certain kind of minister, that I probably was Christian. They started talking Christian language to me. And then pretty soon I say, well, that's not exactly who I am. I'm kind of independent, non-denominational. And the more we talked and the more truthful I became about myself, the more uncomfortable they became. And all of a sudden they would get sleepy or they would look into their book and their magazine because I don't know where this guy is. So I've been always a part of a tribe that gave no attendance at the altar because I never fit any of the labels of what it means to be a minister, to be a Christian, to be a spiritual person. I just didn't fit in. So I'm here to tell you it's all right if you're a little peculiar to people and if you just don't fit in because you are the tribe that gave no attendance at the altar. So let's look at America and dealing with its first chakra. America was built on immigrants, except for African Americans and Native Americans who came here from other countries with an idea to become all one nation unto God. So America was built up on a tribe of people out of Europe who wanted to be a better people. And therefore, they came as immigrants into America. And we could get into that subject sometime, but you got to remember one thing, when you shut the door to all your immigrants, you shut the door to your blessings. America has been blessed because thus far it has opened doors to immigrants to come and to find a different life. And today that door is trying to be shut. Maybe some of those immigrants need to be looked at and reevaluated, but not all of them. And therefore, we can't shut the door to those who are seeking a better life here in America. So it didn't matter if we were poor, uneducated, but we were received into America because we were the melting pot, unfortunately, that didn't quite melt. The workings of the fourth chakra has shown us again and shown up for America. It's interesting that we are really all dealing with first chakra issues. We want to ascend. I know we all do. We love to hear about the heart chakra Oh, we love to hear about the throat chakra and speaking divine truth and speaking our truth. We love to hear about the third eye. That's a big one. About the pineal gland and our ability to see through illusion and to see. And we love the crown chakra that connects us into the higher heavens and the higher identities of ourself. But sometimes we have to realize that we have to take care of these lower chakras that we seem to have put aside. Again, the first chakra is due to that first experience that we have in our incarnation when we come in. And I believe that all begins at conception. We begin to have a relationship with the body in which we are going to eventually come into at birth. So it's interesting that viral and other epidemics are very much the reflection of both the current issues of cultural tribe and the health of a social tribal's immune system. So the immune system is connected to our first chakra. And that's one of the great challenges that people have today are illnesses and diseases that are connected to the immune system. This is one of the main things that people need to deal with. If you're looking for supplements and you're looking for diet and you're looking for different things, you really must look at things that helps the immune system because that helps so many other things. We tend to go out and try to deal with the things without the cause. And sometimes it's the weakened immune system that we need to look at. The point is essential to note because each of us are connected through our first chakra. Attitudes not only of our individual, but our collective. Let's look at a dramatic example of a social tribe's energy capacity to manifest illness would be looking at the polio epidemic of the 1930s and 40s. In October 1929, the American economy crashed. You'll have heard of the Great Depression, I'm sure. Began affecting the whole nation. In describing how American people felt during that time, politicians and business executives and workers, both men and women, all described themselves as having been, I want you to get this, crippled by the economy disaster. By the economic disaster, America had been crippled. America was financially crippled. In the early 1930s, the polio epidemic surfaced after we felt crippled by the finances and showed up as a symbol as a virus, representing the crippled nation. Those who felt most economically crippled, either by actual experience or by the fear of it, were energetically most acceptable to the polio virus. Isn't it interesting that in all of these epidemics, some get it, some don't? Much of today, when this was written, by the way, was during the time of the COVID. Some people connected the COVID virus and others didn't. Again, there was also a different degree of the virus, how it affected people. Some of us had it was very light. We didn't have a lot of issues. Some people had it more severely. Some went into hospitals. Some died from it. So there was all kinds of degrees of how people was experiencing this virus. We were at a place in consciousness that either we received it and what degree we received it was based upon the consciousness that we basically had. I'm remembering the story in the Old Testament about how when the death angel came over the children of Israel and they told them to put blood on the doorpost. You that know Bible a little bit know that they had to put the blood on the doorpost. And when the angel of death came over, it passed over them. That's called the Passover. You that hear about the Passover, which is still celebrated in Judaism and in Israel, is the great day of the Passover. Many today who have applied. Now, blood represents light, and I've taught you that for years. That blood is congealed light. You that have light over your consciousness, your doorpost, can actually be overlooked for some of these things that are happening and coming upon America today. Because children absorb the tribe's energy, and it's children. I'm concerned about children today who are getting measles. It's at our doorstep right now from South Carolina. Texas had a terrible time. And now South Carolina, it's coming here because of the anti-vax nonsense. We could get rid of this. We almost had it eradicated completely. But now it's coming back again with a vengeance because it is finding the children, and it's the children that we have to look at. American children who are in the 30s and 40s, if I can go back to that, were susceptible to the viral disease. When an entire tribe becomes affected with fear, the energy extends to its children. The sense of being crippled was so quickly woven into the tribal psyche. I want you to get this. The American voters elected a president crippled by polio. Roosevelt, in a wheelchair with polio, became the president of the United States of America. At the end of the war, the American nation had assumed a global leadership role. In fact, the United States became the leader of the free world because of its development of nuclear weapons, position that brought enormous pride and power to its culture and tribal chakra. Now, once again, the recovery was reflected in the language of the tribal spokesperson who described their newly healed culture as economically on its feet again. America was on its feet again after World War II. With that shift in consciousness reflecting a healing tribal spirit, the polio virus would be defeated. And the spirit and attitude of the tribe was ultimately stronger than the virus. I love that, of the virus. Not coincidentally, Dr. Jonas Salk discovered the vaccine for polio in the 1950s. I remember that. I remember being a part of the generation that was coming out of the polio epidemic, and how important it was that we all were vaccinated for polio. And polio was defeated at that particular time. So America, if we can look beyond the politics for just a moment, if we can look beyond the players of the moment, we don't wrestle flesh and blood. Let's get this through our head. The ego is projecting on bodies. It does with me. I know it does. I'll be the first to confess to you that it's hard for me not to put this on certain people physically that I see that I have great disagreement with. But it's not with the person. I don't know the person. I don't really know what's going in that person's mind other than what they project. And we all project, especially if you're in religion or politics, you take on an identity, a political identity. Just as we ministers have to be careful, we take on this image of being the minister and being powerful and looking like we always know what we're talking about. That is the ego. That is the ego, because it wants to distract us from consciousness. It's consciousness that needs to be looked at and changed. I appreciate people who feel the passion to go out and to do something. I very much was watching what's going on in Minneapolis this last couple of days. I admit I got drawn in to the whole thing and couldn't help but watching it whatsoever. But I realized that this is exactly what my ego wants me to do. It wants me to get into the images that is being projected out to me and realize there's nothing I could do. Now, I guess I could get on a plane. I don't know if you could now because there's no flights because of the weather, but maybe I could have made it to Minneapolis and I could have held up a sign and done that. But really, I could say, well, there's just nothing I can do with it. And that's what maybe some of you are saying. What does this have to do with me? I have nothing to do with this at all. Well, that's not true, because we are people that are spiritual, meaning we're people of consciousness. That's what needs to be changed. And we all have access to the collective consciousness of this country. So if we keep putting in fear and anger and hatred, we all know the law of that, and the reaping of that is going to be more of the thing that we are trying to be against. So we need to realize that we need to work in the field of human consciousness. So America, time has come. I do believe in karma. I think karma is a 3D thing. I don't think it's a 5D thing, but I think it is a 3D law that what you reap, you sow. I am not an anti-American. I appreciate American. I'm glad I was born in America, and especially if you're white, heterosexual male, just let me say it, you're in really good shape. If you're a white, heterosexual male, you're in a good position in this 3D world. Now, I'm 2/3 there, but I'm not completely there because I'm not a heterosexual white male. So that kind of puts me in my own position that I have to deal with prejudice and misunderstanding. Let's just talk about this. I'm just getting old enough to just tell it like it is. So I'm just telling you, this is this is the way I think. I'm not trying to give you what you want to hear. I'm trying to tell you what is my truth and my experience of what it is today. But yes, when it comes to the fact of people who are of color and people who are not of the status quo, they certainly are not taken as seriously as those in which is trying to hold on to the power of this nation. But you see, in evolution, evolution comes to a point that says, no more, no more. We're going to change this in spite of you. We're going to send the plagues, so to speak. I'm not saying these things feel like plagues. Sometimes it's going on today. But that's what happened to Israel. Israel wouldn't get out of Egypt for 340 years. They talked about it. They didn't budge. And we've been talking about it for 250 years, some of us, and a lot of years. 150 years ago, new thought showed up. Fillmore, Holmes, new thought, and all of this came because it was a part of the voice of reason, the voice of spirituality that says, this will not continue. I've given you grace, but the period of grace is about over, and I'm calling you into a transition of a new agreement, a new place, a new earth, a new tribe that gave no attendance at the altar. And we're a part of that, folks. I say that with no pride of ego. I say it with all the humility that I can muster in myself to say that we were blind, but now we see. So let us see our position and our place today in how that we can do this through the back door of consciousness. And I close with this. For this Christ consciousness will come as a thief in the night. For if the man in the house would have known it was coming, he would be ready. This is why we are kept under the radar. This is why we've not so been blessed, we think, of throngs of bodies and people filling our communities and our buildings, because we are being held back so that we can do this work in the background, like Aaron did the work for Moses. Do you realize Moses' power was because of Aaron in the background, was doing the praying and the intercessory, and all that Moses had to do was go out and hold his hands up, and the people all shouted because Aaron was giving him the power. And we are giving the power today to those who are stepping up for transition and transaction. Let us take just a moment. Divine Holy Spirit, I've given you the best I know to give you of myself. May these words carry your spirit upon them. May these words resonate to those that are ready to hear it, and may they hear it through your spirit. Today we lift up America. We lift up all that is going on across this country, all this seemingly chaos that is going on. But it's the voice of spiritual reason that is gaining and becoming louder and saying no more of this covenant. I gave you grace. I gave you the power for 2,000 years, but you did not rise to the occasion. So therefore, I will harden the heart of Pharaoh, and I will have him drive you out of your complacency and drive you into the place of action. So today we stand up and say, yes, here we are. Here I am. Take me, God. Use me for your glory and for your praise. And we ask this in the name of the loving nature of the living Christ. And so it is. Woo! All right.
Hello to our HeartLight extended family. Those of you watching from home, just like in life, sometimes our extended family grows even larger than the one in the room. And today you make up about 25% of our offering community. That's no small thing. We see you, we appreciate you, and your support helps keep this stream and this outreach going strong. If you feel led, we invite you to give an offering today. Your contribution helps sustain this connection and supports the energy it takes to bring this message to you each week. Thank you for being part of this community. And now we return to the live event.
So remember, this is the last Sunday. It's the last Sunday of this month. It's not the last Sunday, but of this month. And I want to just take this time from my heart to thank you for joining us today. Again, I want to thank Tim and Randall for their wonderful work and contribution in being able to do this. This is very important today that has shown us nothing can stop us. We can continue to do what we need to do and how we can use technology rather than technology using us.